Welcome to In the Envelope, an awards podcast. I am your host, Jack Smart, awards editor at Backstage. I'm here to give you a front row seat to the Emmys, Oscars, SAG, and Tonys races. Who is in the running? What makes an award-worthy performance? And what are the secrets to giving one? These intimate, inspirational conversations with some of today's most talented stars provide you, dear listener, the kind of craft and career advice that could win you a statue of your own, and maybe, just maybe, a tantalizing glimpse in the envelope.
What I would tell my younger self was like, think about what you want and what your desire and focus on your own desire. And there should be like an infinite range of how you can express your own desire, but don't be doing things in order to fulfill other people's expectations or what other people want to see you as.
So today's guest is Natalie Portman.
Oh, is that all?
How do you feel, Jamie? How do you feel about it?
I am and was very excited.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, honestly.
I know.
I know we've gotten big names on this podcast.
But
I still found myself listening to it being like, what?
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, when we were recording it, because we recorded it in a very strange location, so when you hear the interview, it's going to sound a little out of the ordinary.
Maybe
it's not
a little
quite
echoey.
A little echoey. It was in a... Should we explain what the setup was?
This big old room.
It was a huge, like, ballroom almost, like a dinner...
Like a dining room.
Kind of a place.
Very ornate.
Yeah, with tables and plates and knives and forks and things like that.
Just how it goes.
Yeah, it was one of those surreal moments where halfway through I was like, oh, hang on a minute, we're interviewing Natalie Portman right now.
Yeah. And we've interviewed people who've gone on to win Oscars.
Yeah.
Alice Janney and Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
But we've never interviewed someone who already has one.
Yeah.
And is up for more because she's very prolific, and this year alone she has both Annihilation and Vox Lux. Mm-hmm. And we got to talk about both, which was great. And I think we kind of touched on most of her other big ones too.
Yeah.
Because her life journey really is her career is interesting because it started very, very early. And I really enjoyed some of the things she said about being a kid actor.
Yeah.
And how there's almost a purity of knowing what you want at that age. And that has guided her.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that, whatever the subject, whether it's music or acting or dance or whatever.
And keeping your head on straight, which we talked a fair amount about too. And it's ironic because she plays, in this movie Vox Lux, she plays Celeste, who is a pop star who came from this really traumatic background, or has this traumatic thing happen in her childhood and then becomes a international star because of that.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about like the pressures of a young person navigating fame, but also specifically a young woman navigating fame, which Natalie's talked about a lot. But I get overwhelmed when I think about Natalie Portman in these many movies that I've loved and loved and loved. We could go on and on about those. But also she like has been published in scientific journals like from a young age.
Yeah.
She went to Harvard.
Wow. Yeah.
Worth mentioning.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell when you're speaking to someone intellectual.
Yes.
And yeah, she's very measured but very articulate and, like...
Yeah, and I thought I would be intimidated, frankly.
Yeah.
But she opened by joking that she was going to get drunk drinking at this giant ornate room we were just talking about.
Jackie-esque kind of performance.
Yeah, so we're going to start this interview right when it started off with her walking into the room. So I do want... Let's get to it.
Yeah,
awesome.
Let's do it.
Natalie Portman, what? Hey, if you are an actor or an aspiring actor, someone at the beginning of your artistic career, and you haven't signed up for Backstage yet and you don't know how it works, I have good news for you. Backstage is offering 30 whole days completely free just for our In the Envelope listeners. If you visit backstage.com/subscribe and enter the code ENVELOPE, you will have full access to the site where you can make a profile, upload a headshot, upload a reel, start applying to the thousands of casting notices uploaded every single day on the world's #1 casting platform. Again, we are giving listeners of this podcast 30 days completely free to try out Backstage. Go to checkout, that's backstage.com/subscribe, and enter the code ENVELOPE. If you want to be in contention for an Emmy or for an Oscar or for a Tony or for a SAG Award, do as many of the guests on this podcast have suggested and use Backstage. We are here for you. Again, free 30-day trial, backstage.com/subscribe. Enter the code ENVELOPE. This award-winning actor, producer, director, and activist needs no introduction, but we'll try to give her one anyway. You may know her from such starring roles as Léon the Professional, Star Wars, Garden State, Closer, V for Vendetta, her Oscar-winning Black Swan, A Tale of Love and Darkness, and Jackie, or for her advocacy work with the Time's Up movement and more. This year, she led the Paramount Pictures sci-fi thriller Annihilation and played a damaged pop star in Neon's Vox Lux. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome Natalie Portman to the podcast. You can stare at her if you want. Instead of me.
Am I sitting on the right side?
Yes,
correct?
perfect.
Oh wow! Is someone having a dinner party?
Just me.
I have to say, my very first thought when I walked into this room is it reminds me of like the White House scene in Jackie with the wine.
Oh yeah, that's true. I'm gonna get drunk and change dresses a lot.
Have you reenacted like draining of the cup thing?
Totally, easily.
How are you? Is this how's your day?
I'm very tired. I wasn't able to sleep last night.
Me neither.
No way. Was it like a full moon or something?
I don't know. Actually, I'm gonna look that up.
Are you local here in New
Yes.
York? Okay, because I thought it was just like a jet lag thing, and then worrying about being up on time because I.
So I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, great. So we'll both be loopy.
Yeah. I'm putting this here just in case but we're all set, right?
Yeah.
We're all ready to go. And I guess I would love to hear like how you got involved in this because this is a particularly interesting chapter in the filmography of Natalie Portman, in my opinion.
Thank you. I'm assuming interesting in a positive way.
Oh, yes. Let the record show.
I got the script and had a conversation with Brady before I read it even, and it was just so interesting the way he framed it for me because he was telling me that his first film kind of bridged the two big violent conflicts in Europe in the last century, World War I and World War II, and then he wanted to make something set in this century so far, and what were the big violent conflicts in the U.S., and he said, you know, there's the kind of civil war, which is our mass shootings, and our foreign wars, which is terrorism, and this character kind of bridges these two these two large conflicts through the story of her life.
Yeah. And it is almost a sequel to his first work in that way.
Yeah, even though they're, of course, very, very different films in almost every other way.
Yeah. But I like that you said as of now, like that it's...
Well, we're only 20 years into the century, so not even. So, yeah, it's impossible to predict what the next 80 will bring.
Right. And was there something too about was the hook also the pop music element and how he was going to bridge that gap with muses of a pop star kind of thing?
Yes. Well, this like intersection between pop culture seen through the lens of pop music and violence was really interesting too, just as sort of a reflection of the world we're living in right now, where pop culture and acts of violence and politics, it's all mixed together. It's all put on the same level in this kind of constant news media consumption, soundbite land.
Totally. Just noise all the time.
Noise, right. And so it's weird because it gives things a lot more attention than they deserve sometime in pop culture and even in politics, and then also dilutes the meaning of things that should be seen not as merely a soundbite to be bought and sold, but as something kind of deeper, like acts of violence, and gives attention and spectacle to horrific acts in a way that also perpetuates them.
Right. And there's such a focus in the movie too on like these are individual people. It's got such a great thing of micro and macro of like, these are real people. I really got the sense of who Celeste is and what she wants, but at the same time, it is a movie about history or about trends or about like connecting all those bizarrely various dots.
Right. Yeah. It seems kind of far off. And then when, he put it together in that way, it seems so clear and so a reflection of what we're living in right now. And yes, it does. I mean, I think she's such a specific character that he wrote that you really do follow her specific life. But then if you see her as sort of a metaphor also for like our country, then it takes on a whole different kind of resonance.
I love that. And is it safe to say you had fun playing her?
It was definitely fun, although, quite dark, of course. Oh, but yeah, she's just a character that's constantly shifting. She's going from being extremely performative to having these kind of glimpses of authenticity, from being cruel to having kind of also, again, like moments of kindness or vulnerability, to extreme armor, to, it's just, she's constantly shifting and she's different with everyone in every different situation.
Sure. And when you say dark, like, you mean psychologically, like in terms of getting into the head of this person.
Yeah, and the things she experiences. I mean, of course, there's some very violent things she undergoes. So yeah, it was like a very very extreme character that was fun to get to play and kind of have that level of wildness, but also of course there were heavier considerations too to think about emotionally.
Yeah. Did you also kind of jump at the chance to like be a pop star and to have like a...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I also attached to the script had like MP3s of Sia songs that, was the most incredible thing to hear her singing these demos that no one else got to hear of these incredible, incredible pop songs, which... when you read a script and it says like, and then she writes a song which becomes a nationwide hit and takes the country by storm.
Right.
It takes a lot to make that credible, and it's really amazing when you get that opportunity.
Yeah, and to just do like a giant concert, like a full-on concert at the end of the movie.
Yeah, which was daunting but so fun also, and such a great opportunity to like live out a childhood dream.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of which, like I imagine it's also, maybe this is true of every role, I don't know, but did you see parts of your life mirrored in Celeste? In terms of this idea of starting out as a kid and then getting involved in the industry?
Yeah, I think I definitely had a very different experience. Luckily, she's born out of this very traumatic event. And so I think it colors her entire career and trajectory, that there is this sort of deal that like she's profiting off of her own pain in some way. So it's always complicated. Like everything good that has come out of it, all the success, always is a reminder also of what happened to her and where she started and that sort of deal she made to sell her pain and sell herself. Where, I don't relate to that piece of it. But there are aspects, of course, I have an insight into the public versus the private and what you want other people to think of you and how you're crafting your image and how other people are trying to come in and get involved in making your image and also what people do to young girls in the public eye and Brady really was conscious of this sort of, he didn't want to be exploitative of Raffi in any way, the young actress who plays young Celeste, but also kind of reflect the way that our society, our culture puts these young girls into very sexual, kind of like BDSM like looks,
control,
and sells this combination of innocence and sexuality, which would be fine if it was really originating within the girl, but it's something that's really like put on them as this very, very specific image, and so there were things that were reminiscent, even though I've luckily had a very different experience.
Right. Like you didn't make a deal with the devil to have this career.
No. And I many things. And I don't, behave like Celeste, I don't think.
Right. No. You're not quite as big.
Yeah.
I'm
a little subtler.
Yeah, totally. Well, because we're Backstage and we are the Actors Trade publication, we always love hearing about anything related to the business and the craft of acting and any like career advice you have. And I love hearing about this idea of public perception, especially as a young girl. It's tough to maintain your own innocence while having the innocence, but as you say, also the opposite of innocence.
I think that the messaging towards me as a young woman, I knew both in what I saw and what I was told I should be was to think about how I should appear for other people. Like what would make me attractive and pleasing to other people, as opposed to what did I want. And that was the big shift for me, and maybe for everyone, but I think that was the biggest thing. And what I would tell my younger self was like, think about what you want and what your desire, and focus on your own desire. And there should be like an infinite range of how you can express your own desire, but don't be doing things in order to fulfill other people's expectations or what other people want to see you as.
Yeah, which is largely because of the world we live in, what other men want to see you as.
Right, but everyone participates. It's like a cultural thing that I think we all are complicit in to different degrees.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. I love that you said what advice you would give your younger self, because it's literally on my list of questions. But like, we always love hearing that. Like, first of all, when did you know, was it always acting? Did you always know you wanted to do that?
I really liked performing. I was like, I was taking a lot of like dance classes and singing classes and doing a lot of like school plays and camp plays and from as far back as I can remember. And I always loved it and just asked for more and more and more. And then when I was around 9, 10, there were a lot of kids. I lived on Long Island, and a lot of kids were like going out on auditions. It was like a relatively common thing, particularly in the world of like kids who went to dance school and stuff. So, like the kids I was around were auditioning for things in the city.
Broadway,
for Broadway, for TV, for commercials, for movies. And so I really begged my parents to get to do that too.
Okay.
And
you were in an off-Broadway musical as an understudy.
Yes.
Musical, right?
Yes.
And then
good knowledge.
That was
called Ruthless.
Like, what do you remember? Yeah, what do you remember about that?
I was so excited. I had seen it and loved it. There was the girl who originated the lead role and who did it through the whole run was Laura Bundy, who's now Laura Bell Bundy. She's like quite successful actress, and I was just starstruck by her. Cool. She was just like a force. Like she could do everything, and I was just so in awe of her as an audience member, and then got to be like an understudy in like the third or fourth cast or something. And it was just like a dream come true for me. I was so excited.
And you went on?
I went on, so it was an understudy for 2 roles because there was like a secondary role also, and I went on as the secondary role.
Okay,
yeah,
cool. And is it true that Britney Spears was also one of the understudies?
Yes, so she was the understudy before me.
Okay.
So we never overlapped.
Oh, okay.
And I think I got the job when she left to go be on Mickey Mouse Club.
Oh, how crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And soon after that was Léon the Professional.
Yes. So, when I was so I was 10 when I did Ruthless, and then the next like kind of big thing I got was The Professional.
So young.
When I was 11. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the thing of asking yourself what you really want and differentiating that from what other people want is like, it's hard to do at age 11.
It is hard, but also there's also kind of a purity in what you want, because I think that there's, when you're really obsessed with something when you're that age, there's just like a pure love for what you're doing.
Cool.
And my husband and I talk about it a lot because he was that into dance. At that age, that was the age that I realized I was obsessed with acting and wanting to do it and wanting to focus on it. And it was all I thought about was about the same age that he wanted to just dance all the time. And I think it's Walter Murch who said, like, if you're an adult and wondering where your passion lies, think about what you loved when you were 11 years old. I think it was him who identified that age as specific. So I think it's very lucky to have that kind of passion that early, because there are certain things that it takes a lot of practice to, you need years and years and years of trying stuff and messing up and working harder and to get to a point where you can feel more at ease with what you do.
Yeah, I've never thought of it in terms of like it's a purity of ambition. Like I was going to ask you, like, why were you so ambitious at a young age? But it's obsession.
It was just I loved it so much that it was like all I wanted to do, and at the expense of like anything else in my life, which I think is the common thing I hear from anyone who starts at something very young, is that you have to be that into it that it's kind of like you're not upset about missing play dates or something, or soccer practice, or in order to pursue your passion.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting you say that, because I think of you as well known for going to college, for like saying that I'm going to continue to be a movie star, but not at the expense of my education. Yeah. Like that was clearly... Well,
that was definitely like a parental influence kind of thing. Like if I say like what was the, parental, which I really am grateful for, because I think it gave me more than anything, like a really incredible group of friends who are completely separate from my work, that has made me feel very like safe from the ups and downs of my work life, because like no matter whether you're doing well or not, like they don't care. It's not like it felt like I could stop at any point and like, lose any kind of, I could fail in my work and like no one was gonna shun me because of it. And that was like a very safe place to be. To have kind of really true friends.
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds like a mix of your parents encouraging you to do what you want and follow your passions, but also provide some structure and some restrictions.
Right, exactly, which I felt was a very lucky way for them to have handled it, because, erring to either side, like to not allow me to do what I wanted to do, or to allow me to pursue it like 100% of my time. Either one of those would have been too extreme. And that gave me kind of a balanced road.
And a modeling for parenting yourself.
Yes, hopefully.
If your kids want to
do anything.
Be a movie star.
Extreme.
Well, so I'm going back to this idea of like, I'd like to hear about type and about this idea of reconciling who you are and what you want with what the industry, essentially, what the machine of Hollywood is putting on you or typecasting you as, or the career paths are often hard to choose.
Yes.
And I know you've expressed dissatisfaction with the labels that people have put on you sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with you that it is it's very hard. Like when people talk about career path, it doesn't feel that conscious because it, like you said, like you don't usually get to choose your options and like it's very rare that you even have options. And you're often just kind of doing what is the best thing that comes your way. And logistics end up being like so heavily involved, you know, when you're like, oh, I'm in school and I can only work in the summer. What job can I get that will work in the summer? Or like, you know, like my husband has a job and so I can't work during this time, but I can work during this time. Or like, you know, there's so many things that end up being like, you know, things that you can make work and that are also creatively interesting, or you find ways to find things that are creatively interesting.
Like in addition,
I mean, actually, Meryl told me about him.
Yes,
like she was like, you know, in the 90s, I took jobs that were shooting like near New York. Like that were all my choices for a decade were like related to, you know, where I could be close to my children. And it was good to know that even she of the like utmost artistic principles made, and like you'd think endless opportunity was making, you know, choices based on what was practical for family life.
Sure. Yeah, because I feel like so often the question is like, well, yeah, what about this spoke to you? Or like when you look at a script, what do you think of? But often you're like, I have stuff to do.
I mean, it's a funny combination. Like there have been times in my life where I've had options and I've had the, you know, freedom to work whenever and wherever, and there were definite choices. But it's actually been interesting. I feel like when it's been more limited, I've actually been more creatively inspired because you have to figure out how to make things interesting and work. And I don't know, you put yourself into it a little more in a different way.
Yeah, I've heard that's true for it's when you're pressed for time that or resources that you're like at your most
efficient and
maybe able to follow your gut a little better.
Yeah, it's true.
Because often these movie shoots, I'm always astonished to learn that like a movie shoot will be like a week or two.
Right. This film, I worked 10 days on Vox.
Gosh.
Yeah.
But you rehearsed a bunch and prepped a bunch.
I rehearsed and prepped, but that was at home too. So logistically was very.
It's crazy.
It was very conducive to life. Yes.
Is there ever the thing of like, I only have 10 days? Like, is there just a pressure to get it right?
Well, there's a pressure to dive in, you know. I think usually when I go work on something, it takes me 10 days sometimes to even feel like warmed up or like comfortable in my environment to kind of try wilder things. But this, I knew I had to dive in right away. I mean, the first day was the whole drug breakdown scene.
Okay.
And it was lucky that I was with Jude because we'd worked together. It was our fourth time making a film together. And so I went in knowing that I was in safe, generous hands with a very talented actor who was also super respectful and kind. So I felt like I could try extreme things without feeling like self-conscious.
Yeah, because working with a first-time director too, it's nice to have someone else you've worked with in the room.
Yeah, and Brady is also so generous and understanding and like puts you at ease, which it's kind of what you need, is that kind of unconditional love that, you know, it's like, you know that they'll take care of you, like that if it's going the wrong way, that they'll guide you, but that they're not going to judge you. Like, they're not going to be like, oh my God, that's embarrassing.
How embarrassing for you.
You have to put all the self-consciousness aside. You
have to. Yeah, you need trust, but it has to be an environment that has no judgment.
Yes.
And like, try whatever you want.
Exactly.
And in this movie in particular, it just felt like every impulse was from your being, from your gut.
Yeah, and it was extreme. Like, we did really extreme things and tried really extreme things. And Brady kind of created an environment where we could try different things every take because we were doing continuous takes. which is wonderful because then you don't have to match from take to take,
right,
because it's all in one. And when you spontaneously throw things to each other, you can spontaneously react because everything's captured. So
wonderful.
You're not like, oh, we're going to have to repeat this on the other side to get the reaction. And as an actor, you can really feel the shape of the scene as opposed to doing like little fragments that the director will then put together.
Right.
So that was really fun because we just got to do, 10 different takes. And so rare on a film that's so fast to shoot to get to try so many different things.
I see. Okay. And is it true too that because he's an actor, like have you found that working with directors who've acted, there's an extra element of communication or?
Well, I think that he understands like the kind of freedom that is fun for an actor and the kind of feedback that's helpful, and when it's helpful to just kind of like create the right environment and let things roll.
Gotcha.
I felt very safe because I felt him stepping in when it was necessary, and I felt him stepping back when he was happy with the way things were going, which is nice. It's not someone just saying things for the sake of saying things, or someone who's like afraid to say things and is just like watching like a spectator. It was he was very, very involved.
How would you describe your own like directing style, if you have one?
I think I try to be specific to the actor because I think people really need different things, and you kind of have to try things until you see what the person responds to.
Okay.
So, some people respond to just a lot of different, a lot of takes so that they can try different things. Some people need a lot of specific directions. Some people need like you to ask questions of them that they have to answer. Some people need like very specific like keywords that will clue them in.
Cool.
I don't know. I think it's just kind of being attentive to what helps the particular person.
Yeah, I've never heard of it as like when to step forward and when to step back. Yeah. Is a huge part of directing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I guess managing anything.
Yeah.
I have to talk about Jackie. I mean, we have to talk about Jackie because of the set behind it.
We're going to act it out.
Yeah, well, and I guess Black Swan, because the thing about, I was reading an article about you the other day that did separate your career almost into before and after Black Swan, going off the lines of kind of what you were saying about like, you're an innocent young girl, the industry is maybe sexualizing you or maybe putting you in this box.
Right.
And everything since then has been, I mean, I don't know if it's been about to challenge people's preconceptions of you or not, but it's almost like you were the white swan before and then the black swan after.
That's funny. I don't necessarily, I definitely don't like consciously see it that way.
Right.
But again,
like you said, the career path is not.
Yeah, it's not necessarily, controlled in a conscious manner. But but sure, that's an interesting interpretation.
You can only look back
from
on
the
a career
outside.
path. You can't plan it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to an extent, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you? How much do you think about challenging yourself? I think of you as someone, who must get on set and be like, these are the ways I want to challenge myself specifically. Yeah,
I think that it's always appealing to me if there's something like new I can learn that I'm interested in learning out of a role. It's a plus because I think, I like doing a lot of, I like doing the prep. Like, I feel like that's, first of all, of course, it gets you on set and then you can just kind of reside in the character. But also, I feel like that's where you get the part of the experience. It's like how you can kind of make it more meaningful for yourself. And it's a pleasure to do when you're interested in what you're prepping about. So, to like watch a bunch of documentaries about pop stars was not a chore. And my last film, I played an astronaut, and like watching all this stuff and reading all this stuff about astronauts and space exploration was fascinating. It was like if if the research that the character entails is something that is appealing and something that you feel like you can easily get obsessed with and try and, know everything about, then that is an appealing role when you're in a moment when you actually have choices, because many moments I feel like it's not like choices. It's what you can get.
Yeah, I would say most listeners of this podcast are in the more of a working actor auditioning phase of their careers, probably.
Yeah, well, I think also even once you start working, it's you go through waves all the time, and
you've had dry spells.
Oh, many, and also like logistical dry spells, like I'm talking about, where like life prevents you from sometimes doing everything that you would want to do, and you're kind of like, okay, what is my best option? And it's not always like, oh, this is my dream role, but sometimes it can turn into it, like unexpectedly, which is very cool.
Yeah, like you were pregnant during the Oscar season of Jackie. Like that was just like
that's what life handed me, which was great. Delightful.
Right, totally. How often do you audition these days?
Not very often, but every once in a while there will be like a director that I'm interested in working with, and they're like, oh, they're only considering people who will read for this, or jump through some hoop. I never get it when it's an audition.
Oh, really?
I never get the part.
Oh, see, that's
very good
at
auditioning.
Though. That's good to hear. Like, I was going to ask, like, do you have any tips of the trade for specifically auditioning? Because it is kind of a different skill set.
It is really different. I don't.
That's amazing to hear that you're
I'm not. I usually get the parts that just come to me after someone's seen something that I've done.
Right. Well, and that's been true throughout your career. Like, this is maybe random, but did Mike Nichols audition you, or did you meet him?
No, that was really lucky. Mike came to see me when I was doing Diary of Anne Frank.
Amazing.
On Broadway, and then asked me to do The Seagull after that, which was amazing. And then after we worked together, asked me to do Closer. So that was really super, super lucky.
Yeah.
But there's very few roles that I've gotten because of auditions. I'm not good at auditioning.
That's really
it's really hard. When I was younger, obviously, I did, but I was better at it.
Maybe because of that
lost
purity.
Confidence. Yeah, lost confidence, lost passion.
That's so interesting to hear. Yeah, because we always love hearing that kind of advice. Annihilation. What was the challenge in that? What did you take on with that?
Well, that was so interesting to me because of this concept that the alien is inside us, and that what we're facing is our own mutated behavior is alien. Like sometimes we start behaving in ways that we don't understand. They're not necessarily how we want to behave, and we're doing it anyway. And it's confronting a whole alien landscape. And that was just fascinating for me to consider, which was, Alex Garland's incredible reinterpretation of this great book by Jeff Vandermeer. And so that was truly just amazing emotionally to sort of think about.
Yeah, to have that reading. I feel like there's a million readings of that movie.
Yeah, well, there are, which I also love, but that was what I was working with. Yeah.
That's so cool to hear.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like this is a year, and it's so funny that this is what happens, two movies come out in the same year.
Yes.
And they're two very different roles or two very different things.
Yes. And filmed at very different times too, because Annihilation took a very long time to come out, and Vox Lux took a very short time to come out. So
interesting.
Because I was pregnant with my daughter during Annihilation.
Oh. Okay.
And then very early pregnancy, obviously, because you don't see. And she turned 1 while we were shooting Vox. So like I can time it from that we filmed them 2 years apart.
So it's not necessarily
a year and a half apart.
It's not like one role was immediately following the other, or one was in response to the other. Yeah.
Not at all.
But you learn from each role and you take it into the next.
Yeah, I mean, not always consciously. Like it doesn't always feel like a progression or something, but I'm sure there's definitely. And Annihilation, I felt, was like quite minimalist in terms of like the style of everything, and this is quite expressionistic.
Cool.
So it's stylistically it was very different.
But I love seeing the similarities of like they're two movies that are open to interpretation a lot, which I like.
Yes, I like that too.
And I like that you have a reading, because of course as an actor you come in with your own reading.
You have to have an interpretation. You don't always have to share it with anyone. Because I think every interpretation is valid, and you shouldn't be like, this is what I meant.
Right.
But, if people are interested, I think it's up to everyone whether they want to reveal or not.
Yeah, and it's almost like the reveal thing too is not something you want to do before the process either.
No, because that's part of the joy is that the audience completes the art by continuing the conversation. The artist sort of creates half of the piece, and the audience meets it. So when you have these pieces that are really open and not prescriptive, it's especially thrilling to see what people come up with.
Oh, sure. Would you ever come to Broadway again? Would you ever do more theater?
I would love to.
Okay.
I would love to. Again, it's like when is going to be the right moment of life to do that? The practicality is real.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you too about Me Too.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, any causes, because I feel like this is where this podcast is not actually quite our area of expertise, but like you are leading the charge on so many different causes. And I'm wondering, first of all, if you want to rattle off some resources or some nonprofits to donate to, or some actionable things that people can, what are you thinking about right now, or what are you working on?
I've been lucky enough to be part of Time's Up, which was a sort of response to Me Too. Me Too was started by Tarana Burke, and then was popularized even more by Alyssa Milano, and created this, as everyone knows, this kind of
thank God
surge. Surge of very brave people coming forward about their experiences that really normalized the talking about experiences of sexual harassment, abuse, rape, coercion, and also allowing people to see who serial abusers were, because when people were silent about it, then people who had patterns of abuse could continue to perpetrate. So I cannot claim any responsibility or involvement in that, except for great admiration for the people who really built that movement. And Time's Up was a reaction of women in the entertainment industry in the beginning to how can we make changes that won't allow this culture of abuse to kind of simmer. And the first action was to create the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund, which is something that anyone can donate to. You could give $5, you can give, and it provides legal aid to women women and men across all industries who need financial aid for legal help when they're battling these instances of sexual harassment, coercion, abuse, rape in work-related situations, or when they're even being having a hard time just talking about it. Because sometimes what happens is that people will come forward and talk about their experiences, and then the perpetrator sues them for defamation and uses kind of legal bullying to shut them up. And so it also helps that kind of case. So, I mean, if people need that as a resource, then they can, apply for the legal defense fund. They've already helped thousands of women and men across industries.
Amazing.
And also it's a great thing to give to. And then there's other initiatives within our industry trying to create a sort of safety mechanism, because I think one of the and change laws, which is a big challenge, because I think a lot of people listening, what they might have experiences with is that a lot of the cases of abuse in our industry happen during job interviews, which happen all the time when people are auditioning.
Yeah.
And in those cases, you're not an employee. So you actually cannot make a claim to the company of the person, because it doesn't fall under sexual harassment legislation.
Totally.
So so changing policy is actually a big piece of it for our industry in particular. But there's other sort of more detailed things, in every state has different laws and different policies. But so there's also like a Know Your Rights on the Time's Up website that helps you kind of navigate that aspect.
Yeah, because even if you've never experienced that in auditions, it doesn't mean you're not going to at some point. Like it's
right, and also just knowing things that you can do to protect yourself, like like there should always be more than one other person in the room when you're auditioning, so that there's always and it should be between 9 to 5 in an office space, not in a. I mean, it's quite normal to have these kinds of meetings and auditions in hotels, but this is part of the culture that needs to change.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Anything else? My 16-year-old sister is vegan.
Oh, great!
And I wonder if you can speak to, why that's an important cause for you as well.
Well, I think that
it has been for most of your life.
Yeah, I've been vegetarian most of my life, and I've been vegan for 7 years now, and it becomes more urgent, I think, too, with the environmental pressures that we're all facing, and factory farming is such a big contributor to all of the greenhouse gases and air, water, soil pollution, not to mention the spread of these flus and bird flu and swine flu. It all originates in factory farms. So I've always been very attached to the ethics of eating animals and the ethics of raising animals in the kinds of conditions that they are raised in for 99% of the animal food products that we consume. But there's also a very human and environmental impact of that factory farming. So that's been really, really important to me. And there are some great organizations. Farm Sanctuary is a wonderful one that helps factory farmed animals. There are some wonderful organizations out there that, and also just changing your own habits, even if it's once a day or once a week. It makes a huge impact if everyone does it. So you don't have to like take on a new identity and say like, I'm never going to eat meat again. But if you can do it once a day, at lunch or on Mondays, then that makes a really big impact across the board.
Yeah, educating yourself and also taking small doable actions like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's doable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any parting words of wisdom?
Parting words of wisdom? No, I mean, I think everyone knows themselves best, and just like, focusing on reading your own desires, because I think that's the big thing that a lot of the movie is about too, that Vox Lux is about, is, how much of your persona are you trying, and part of the world we live in now is to show other people some version of yourself that you want them to see, as opposed to just, being in a way that brings you joy.
Yeah. Way to bring it back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
Thank you so much.
In the Envelope is recorded in New York City at Lotus Productions and Hyperbolic Audio. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, tweet us at In the Envelope, leave a review. We want to hear from you. Visit Backstage.com for more content and resources for working artists, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage with a free trial by using the code ENVELOPE at checkout. Thanks, as always, to podcast producer Wiz, Jamie Muffett. You can follow him on Twitter at JamieMusicNYC. You can follow me, Jack Smart, on Twitter at JackSmartWrites. Thank you to the team at Backstage, the most trusted name in casting: Peter Rappaport, Mark Stinson, Samantha Sherlock, Francis Ramos, Lauren Rout, Caitlin Watkins, Rowan Al-Khatib, and especially should-be Oscar nominee Casey Howe. Thanks for listening.
I'm gonna get drunk and change dresses a lot.